Hello and welcome to the Martin High School video on Progress 8. This video aims to go through Progress 8 and explain what it is and how it works. So, what is Progress 8? Well, in 2016, this is one of the new performance measures that has been introduced, and it measures the progress that pupils have made from their Key Stage 2 SATs in English and Maths to the end of Key Stage 4, where they'll have done most likely GCSEs in 8 subjects. So it's how much have they improved in that time, how much progress have they actually done based on where they were when they finished in Year 6 to where they are at the end of Year 11. Now, the 8 subjects have to meet certain criteria in order to count, and there's a process for this which I'll go through in a minute. So you cannot have any 8 subjects. Typically, they will be looking for some of your better subjects and the best grades you've got, because a lot of students will study more. So the 8 subjects have to fit into certain criteria. So we're going to look at next what subjects will count, and we'll go through the order where they are going to be selected. So now I'm going to look into which subjects count in the Progress 8 score. And so we've got 8 dots to represent the 8 subjects that would go into the measure. The first 2 dots at the top are for English and Maths. And so as your Maths GCSE will be a number grade now, that number represents how many points you will get. The next one is English, but it will take the best of the 2 GCSEs in English that you'll have. So whichever is better out of your Literature or Language GCSE will go in next. The next 3 grades or GCSEs that will be used are from the English Baccalaureate subjects, or EBAC. These will be the humanities, the sciences, including computer science, and also any language, GCSE language you've done. Now, it doesn't have to be one of each, like one humanity, one science, and one language. It will just be your best 3 out of this little pool, if you like. So you could have geography, you could have physics, and you could have French. As long as you have done GCSEs in those and they are your best 3 scores, then that will fill up this part of the Progress 8 calculation. If you did not do 3 EBAC subjects, and so you only had 2 in there or even 1, then you'll get 0 points for the other spaces. And this is going to have a negative impact on your Progress 8 score. It's not going to be as good. So schools will increasingly now be looking to ensure that the majority of pupils or all pupils will be following at least 3 EBAC subjects to ensure that they are filling up this part of the requirement. The last section will look at any other high value subjects. They don't need to be GCSEs, they just need to be your best remaining grades from any other qualifying subject. So that could be EBAC, that could be your other English result if it's high enough, and it doesn't have to be GCSEs, BTECs can be included and a few other subjects as well. So we could have a GCSE in Design Technology. If that was your next highest, that would go in. Then say your English, if that was one of the better ones that you've got. And then finally, BTEC Construction. Now with the BTEC, because the grading's different, the points are slightly different. So you just have to be aware that it can be a little bit tricky at that point. Now with English and Maths at the top, because they are core subjects, and the reason why the best English goes at the top is because the English and Maths points will count double. So whatever you get there will count double, giving a total of 10 scores, although only 8 subjects. And then this is how we get a final score at the end, by taking these all together. Now once you've added them all together, you will get what's called the Attainment 8 score, which is another measure. But then once you divide it by the 10, you would then have what's considered the Progress 8 score. So what I'm going to do next is go through an example of this with a particular pupil and how a Progress 8 score at the end will be calculated. So let's say that we do have a pupil in Year 6 and they come out with a score from their Key Stage 2 SATs of 5.2. Now at this moment in time, for most pupils, that would be based on a level system, because most students currently would have had levels in their Key Stage 2s. The new year groups that have gone through now, they are getting standardized scores over 100, so it could be anywhere from 80 up to 120. Now in Year 6, if you had a 5.2 score, then you would get to Year 11 and you would have made progress, you would have made your choices, you would have taken some GCSEs and some other subjects, and let's say you come out with a score of 6.6, and that was your final Attainment 8 score from there. Now at the minute, you might look at this and say, well, they've gone from a 5.2 to a 6.6. So that's progress. That looks like it's improved. But the question will always be now, is that good progress? And what do we mean by good progress? Well, Progress 8 looks at this as well. How did you compare to other pupils in Year 6 who got a 5.2? And is that 6.6 like what other people got when they were in getting a 5.2 in year 6, did they go up to that? Did they do better? Did they do worse? And then your Progress 8 score comes from that comparison. So what we're going to do now is going to look at that in action. So let's say we looked at the national average for level 5.2 pupils. Okay, so at Key Stage 2 they got 5.2, and there'll be lots of these students around the country who averaged out at this score, and they will have all got their Attainment 8 scores at Key Stage 4. They'll all have their point scores at the end. And so what will happen is we would calculate an average, and let's say that was 6.2. Now this is always taken from the year group before that is left. It is not possible to do it with the current year group that have gone through. It won't work. So the previous year group, the last cohort that went through their exams, are used to calculate this. So if the average was 6.2, when we go back to our pupil, they'll get a Progress 8 score based on this calculation, that they individually got a 6.6, but the national average from the previous year for similar ability pupils from Key Stage 2, the same sort of ability range, they came out as 6.2, which means that this individual pupil has a Progress 8 score of plus 0.4. And that's because they have done better than the national average. They have a positive Progress 8 score because they did better than what nationally happens. And that's what it would mean on an individual level. What I'm now going to go through is what it means for us as a school level. So the school will have its own value for Progress 8, and every school has now got one of these as it was introduced last year. And so this is the average Progress 8 score for all the pupils in that year group that left. So they take all the positive and negative scores, add them up together, divide by how many pupils there are, and that gives the school score, one single number to represent the school's progress. Now on a scale, if a school ended up with 0, it means that they performed like a national average school, or the progress of the pupils was like the national average. If a school came out with a positive score, then they were above average, the amount of progress made by the pupils was above average, and if a negative score, then they performed below average. And that's how it works. Most schools are getting these for the first time and are learning a lot about how this actually is being broken down, and it helps schools to identify where they may need to improve, so that they need to get their learners to make more progress in particular areas. And so this is how this measure will be used going forward. As the new GCSEs roll in, all of the GCSEs will go on a 1 to 9 scale, and so those grades become the points which will be used in this system. At this moment in time, there's a little bit of variation because we do have a mixture of 1 to 9 grades, and we also have A star to G grades. So there's a bit of a conversion process that goes on there. But hopefully you found this video useful and helpful to explain how Progress 8 works and what it means for both individual pupils and the school. Thank you.